Hello, and thank you for purchasing the Split Screen Slider number 2 Shopify section by qwiqode. In this video, I'll be showing you how to use it. With this section, you can have a fixed media element, such as an image or a video, with text that slides next to it. The media element remains in place, while the text content moves in a slider. To get started, let's add some text content by clicking these blocks on the sidebar. Once you click, you have a title, a subtitle, a text block, a button label, which is this one, the button number 1, the link, button label number 2, and the link. So let's add some custom content. Okay. All these elements are in a rich text box, so you can select the text and change the wrapper to be heading 3, 4, 5, 6, or to be a regular paragraph like this. And on text block, I'm gonna paste some content I have on my clipboard. Maybe on button label, we can put something like buy now and add a direct link to that product. On the second button, we can either leave it blank by removing this, or maybe something like all products, and add a link to all of them. Now I'll add some more content to the slides and speed up the process. Okay, now that we added the text, let's go to the section settings to add the media and the styling. The first option is the media selector, and right now by default it's image, but you can also select it to be video. But on this example, I want to use an image, so I'm gonna select it from this field. And then we have the video URL. This is in case you want to use a video. If it's a YouTube or a Vimeo video, you'll add the link in here. But you can also add an MP4 video, maybe something like this. Okay, next we have the video poster image. And this is in case you want to add an image as a placeholder before playing the video. You can add an image here on the video poster image. I look like this. Okay, but maybe I'll add a different image. Okay, better. Next, we have the media styling. And the first option is media position. Right now it's right, but you can select it to be on the left, like this. Okay. And then we have the media dimensions. Right now it's original, but you can select it to be landscape, like this. Portrait, square, horizontal, or vertical. But for this example, I'm gonna leave it at square because I really like how it looks. Okay, next we have the media height. And by default it's auto, so the height comes from the dimensions, but you can also select it to be full. So full will expand 100% of the column. But right now it stays the same because the text is small. But let's say, for example, you have a very long text, or maybe the font is big. Let's say we have something like this, very long text. With the media height selected as full, we'll see that even though the media dimensions are square, we're forcing the media element to expand all the way. Okay, but if we keep it at auto, we'll see that the height will come from the media dimensions. Okay, so that's how we control the height of this element. I'm gonna remove the extra content that I added. Next, we have the media width, and by default is 50%, but you can adjust this to be less than that, okay, or to be wider than that. But on this example, I'm gonna leave it around maybe 60. Okay. Next, we have the media border radius, which controls the corners of the media element. And with this, we can adjust it. Then we have the media margin from text, which is this distance over here. Right now, by default, is 30 pixels, but you can increment that distance to give it even more space. So we'll see it right here. But maybe we don't need that much, so I'm gonna leave it around 20. Then we have the same settings for mobile, the media width. So right now is 100%, okay? But you can make it smaller like this, okay? But on this example, I'm gonna leave it at 100%. And then you have the media position to be top or bottom, but I really like it at top. And then you have the media margin from text on mobile. With this, you can increment this distance over here. Let's go back. Next, we have the video styling. And the first option is the play icon. So this is enabled only when we're using a poster image like we're doing right now. So we can add a custom play icon, maybe something like this. Okay, next we have the play icon size. By default it's medium, but you can select it to be smaller than that or way large like this. But I really like at medium, so I'm gonna leave it like this. Okay, cool. Next we have the video settings. And the first option is to autoplay the video. So right now it's enabled, but because we're using a poster image, we are not seeing it. But if we remove that poster image, let's say we have it like this. And if we go back to the video settings, we'll see that the video is playing automatically. Okay. Next, we have the loop video option. And when this is enabled, at the end of the video will repeat again. So we have it enabled as default, but if we remove it, we'll see that the end of the video will stop the video. I will not play it again. but I really like the loop effect, so I'm gonna leave it enabled. Next, we have the show controls on video. So when this is enabled, you'll see the controls on the video. So the users can pause the video or scroll to the position of the video. But I really like it to be disabled because I want it to look seamless. So I'm gonna leave it like that, okay? But on this example, I really like to use an image. So I'm gonna put this back to an image. Okay, and also I'll adjust the border radius and leave it like this. Let's go back. Next, we have the slider settings. And the first option is to enable or disable the autoplay. So when we enable this and we control the speed, we'll see that the text will automatically play like this. Next, we have the slider animation. By default, it's fade. But if you select slide, you'll see that the text will animate right to left like this. When it's on fade, it looks like this. But I really like it to be fade, so I'm going to leave it like that. Next, we have the slider navigation. And by default, it's dots, but you can also select none. So this will move seamlessly without the dots at the bottom. But I really like the dots, so I'm going to leave it like this. Then we have the same settings for mobile, but on mobile, you can also use arrows. Let me show you. When arrows is enabled, you'll see it right here. You can also move the position of the arrows. Next, we have the slider dot styling. And the first option is the background. So maybe we can add something like that. Next, we have the slider dot color. So maybe we want them this color. And then we have the active one. So the active one highlights the active slide, which is showing the text, okay? Next, we have the slider dot size. By default, it's medium, but you can also select large or small. Next, we have the slider dot position, bottom left. You can also select bottom center or bottom right. And next, we have the slider dot margin from text. Right now it's 10. But if you want to increment that space over here, you can adjust this. Maybe on this example, I'm going to leave it at left. Then we have the slider dot margin from edge. So this controls this outside distance. So by default it's 0, but if you want to move this to the inside like this, you can adjust this range. But on this example, I'm going to leave it at 0. And then we have the slider dots border radius, which controls the corners of the dots and the wrapper. So if we do it like this, we'll see that border change, okay? Next, we have the same slider dot styling for mobile. Because right now it's arrows, I'm going to change it back to be dots or mobile, okay? And the first option is the dots position. By default, it's at bottom of text, but you can put at the top of the text like this. And then we have the slider dots horizontal alignment. Right now it's on the left, but you can select it to be center or right, okay? And actually, I'm gonna leave it at the bottom of the text like this and left. And then we have the same, the margin from text, which controls this distance over here. And then we have the margin from edge, which is the outside distance. Then we have the slider arrow styling. The arrows are only available on mobile. So let's go and change it to arrows in here. And then on arrows, you can select it to be at the bottom of the text or to be at the top of the text like this. And then you can also adjust the margin from edge. So if we increment this, we'll make the arrows closer and closer. Then we have the colors for the arrows. So we can select from here, maybe the line color to be something like that. And the background of the arrow, maybe we can select it to be like this. Next, we have the custom arrows. If you want, you can add your own, like we did with the poster image with the play icon. But I really like how it looks, so I'm going to leave it like that. Let's go back to desktop. Next, we have the section styling. By default is full width, but you can select it to be regular. When this is regular, this right here, which is the content max width, will be the total width of the whole section. But if the section width is set to full width, the whole section will expand across, but the content inside will remain within this grid. So maybe if I add a background color, you'll see the difference. Okay, so right now it's full width. You see that the section expands all the way, but the content remains inside a wrapper. And that wrapper, we control it using this field right here. But if you want to expand the text all the way and ignore this max width, you can enable this and you will see that the content expands all the way across the screen, no matter the width of the screen. But maybe on this example, I'm going to leave it like this because I want the content to remain at the center. Next, we have the section border radius, which it controls the borders, but the outside borders of the section like this, but I'm going to leave it at 0. Okay, next we have the section top, bottom, and horizontal margin. The top margin controls the outside distance of this section and the previous section, okay? And the bottom margin controls this section and the next one. For example, if we increment this, we create even more room down here, okay? The same for the top. Cool. Next, on section horizontal margin, this is only available when we're using regular. Let's say you want to expand the content max width, but you don't want the section to expand all the way like it does on full width. So with this field, you can control this outside distance. So right now it's 20, but you can add more. This means that the whole section will be 1400, but we'll have that margin over here. Because if we do it like this, it will look on smaller screens like it's full width. But if we want to add that space, we can control it using this field. Okay, but on this example, I really like the full width, so I'm gonna leave it full width and we can ignore this field right now. And next we have the top, bottom, and horizontal padding. So the margin is the outside distance, but the padding is the inside distance. Okay, so right now it's 20 pixels, so the content remains 20 pixels from the border. But if you want to make more room, you can adjust this, and then you'll see that the content will remain 60 pixels from the inside. We can do the same for the bottom, so we see that distance in the inside. Okay, and then the horizontal padding controls this distance over here, but instead of the outside, like the margin, is the inside. So this distance. So right now it's 20 pixels. If we increment this, we'll see that we're adding more space inside. Okay, but I really like it to be around 20, so I'm gonna leave it like this. Next, we have the same for mobile, top, bottom, and horizontal margin, top, bottom, and horizontal padding. And next, we have the slide text area styling. And the first option is the vertical alignment. By default, it's center, so it's centered from the image, but you can also select it to be at the top, okay, or at the bottom, like this. And next, we have the text area horizontal padding. This over here controls the inside distance of the text area. If we increment this, we'll see that the text area, which is around here, now we're creating more room on the inside for it. But on this example, I'm going to leave it at 0 because I really like how it looks like this. Okay. And then we have the text area text alignment. By default, it's left, but you can select it to be center like this or to be right. Okay. But on this example, I really like it on the left, so I'm going to leave it at left. Next, we have the same for mobile, the text area horizontal padding, and the text alignment. Okay. Next, we have the styling for the text elements. And the first one is the title styling. In here, you can adjust the color. So maybe we can add a color like this, okay, for the title. And then we have the use custom font. When this is enabled, you can select a custom font from this list. So maybe something like this. You'll see that the font is this font from Google Fonts. Next, we have the custom font family name. This is in case you're loading a custom font on your store. Let's say you're loading a Helvetica. You'll put here just the font name, and that text will grab that custom font family name. But on this example, I'm going to leave it blank. Next, we have the font weight. Right now it's default, but you can select it to be a very thin font like this, or you can select it to be bold. But on this example, I'm going to leave it as default. Next, we have the margin top and margin bottom. And with this, we control this distance over here. So let's say we want to make more room between the title and the subtitle. We can adjust this. I will make that space over here. The same at the bottom. So if you want to make more room, you will adjust it right here. Next, we have the font size. And with this, we control how big the font looks. Next, we have the line height. And the line height is the vertical distance between the characters. Let's say we have a very big font size. With this over here, we control that vertical distance between the characters. So if you want to make more room, you create that space. But if you want them to be closer, you can adjust this right here. Okay, but maybe on this example, I'm going to leave it smaller. Okay, and the line height to be 0. So when 0 is selected, it's using the default from your theme. This is the same for the font size. So if you keep it at 0, it will grab your theme's font size for this element. But on this one, I'm going to leave it a little bigger. Then we have the letter spacing, and the letter spacing is the distance, but it's the horizontal distance. So with this, we control that distance between the characters. We made more room in here. So if we make it even bigger, we'll see that the characters have more space between them. Okay, but I'm gonna leave it at 0 because I really like how it looks like that. And then we have the same for mobile, top and bottom margin, font size, line height, letter spacing. Next, we have the same for subtitle. Okay, so maybe we can add a different color, and maybe for this one around there, maybe a little less. Okay, that looks good for me, so I'm gonna leave it like that. And then we have the same for the text block. So maybe we have a different color and maybe a little bigger. Okay, so maybe this distance is way too much right now that the text is smaller. So I'm gonna reduce that distance margin top, or margin bottom from the text, so the elements are a little closer. Next, we have the same settings for mobile, top and bottom margin, font size, line height, and letter spacing. Then down here we have the button styling, and the first option is the buttons layout. So by default it's side by side, but you can also stack the buttons like this, okay? Then you have the gap between buttons. If you increment this, will create more room between them, even if we're stacked or side by side. Okay, then we have the button margin top. We control this distance over here. So if you increment this, we create more room right here. The same for margin bottom. If you want to increment this distance, you'll add that margin bottom over here. But remember that the dots also have a margin. Okay, so you can either use this margin bottom or use the margin between dots and text. So maybe this is too much. Actually, I'm gonna leave it at 0. So when this is 0, this distance over here is being controlled only by the dots, the option we adjusted before. Next, we have the horizontal padding and the vertical padding. So this is the same as the section, which is the inside distance. Okay, so right now it's 20 pixels. So if we increment this, we'll make the buttons way wider because we're adding more horizontal space. The same for vertical. But if we increment this, you'll see that the buttons are taller because we added more inside distance between the text and the edge of the button. But maybe this is too much, so I'm gonna leave it around here. That works for me. Next, we have the use custom font, which it works the same as this one's, okay? When this is enabled, you can select one from here, and the custom family name, okay? The font weight, the font size, and the letter spacing, okay? Next, we have the same for mobile. Buttons layout, side by side or stack, gap between buttons, margin top, margin bottom, horizontal padding, vertical padding, and font size. Next, we have the button borders. The first option is border radius, and with this, we can control the edges of the button, okay? And next, we have the button border width. For example, if we have it at 2, and we have a border color down here on the button colors, we'll see that the border has that color. Okay, but if this is 0, you won't see this border color, but because it doesn't have any border. So maybe this is useful in case you want to use something like this, okay? So you can select that border width right here. But on this example, I'm gonna leave it default to be 0. Then we have the buttons hover colors. And this is when a user puts the mouse on top of the button, you can change the color. For example, as you can see on hover, the background changes to black. So you can control that background color, the text color, and the border color as well. So I really like how it looks, but maybe this is too much distance. So I'm gonna adjust that in here. And maybe the slider dot size, I'm gonna leave them as large. And when using large, maybe this. Okay, so maybe the padding as well, I'm gonna leave it way less. Cool. I really like how it looks, so I'm gonna save it, and that's it. Thank you again. If you have any questions or if you run into any issues, please don't hesitate to contact us via the support page on our website. Thank you and take care.